Greetings, book lovers everywhere, and welcome to Eat Train Talks. I'm your host, Eat Train. I'm a 13-year-old literacy advocate, booktuber, and kindness promoter. And here on Eat Train Talks, I try to shine a bright light on children's authors and the amazing stories they create. Last summer, when I was visiting New York, I had the very special privilege of visiting Holiday House Publishing Company. And I spoke with the amazing editing and marketing staff about upcoming stories published by Holiday House. And one book that really caught my attention that I knew I had to read was this book right here, Table Titans Club. I was lucky enough to get an advanced reader's copy, and I loved it so much. And now I'm lucky enough to even interview the author, the one and only Scott Kurtz. Well, who is he, you're wondering? Well, he is the Eisner and Harvey award-winning cartoonist who helped pioneer webcomics. And he started with PvP, which debuted in May of 1998. And since then, he's gone on to produce podcasts, animated series, and live role-playing events. And, of course, he created the adventure graphic novel series Table Titans and Table Titans Club. Thanks so much for joining me today, Scott.
Well, thank you for having me, and congratulations. In between when we first messaged and now, you had a bar mitzvah, right?
Yeah,
Well, Mazel Tov.
thank you.
And so you've entered adulthood now, huh? What's
Yeah,
that like?
I
What's
don't
that
feel
like?
like it.
Really?
Yeah,
Well, as someone
no.
who hasn't entered adulthood yet, you'll have to let me know what that's like.
I'll keep you in the loop.
Yeah, I don't think anyone ever really feels like it's happened.
Yeah, and I think adults are just like taller versions of kids.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The good ones are.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. And so to dive into the questions, let's first talk about how you got started. So you've been writing and illustrating awesome webcomics for years. But what led you to want to write a middle grade book, and especially a middle grade series, which is the Table Titans series, which we'll talk about later. So what was the publishing process like for you as well?
Well, okay, so I'd been doing comic strips since the fourth grade, and when I started professionally, uh, it was kind of by accident. So when um, when web comics kind of started, no one really knew what they were doing. We were all just kind of experimenting, and it wasn't until later that it all seemed kind of planned out and premeditated, but it wasn't. We were all just kind of flying by the seat of our pants, and every year was different, and we just kind of built the business up around us. Um, and when things changed for me was after I had done it um, for almost 2 decades, right? So I'd done it from 98 till about 2018, 2019. Uh, things changed, and the business changed, and I was getting kind of worn out of the daily grind, and I
Hmm.
really wanted to pivot. I also uh, just turned 50 years old at the time, and it felt like it was time to try a new chapter. And I have a niece who is now she's gonna be 11 here shortly, and she's just really she's like you. She just can't read enough. She just loves books, 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 and so yeah, that's kind of what led me to move from doing a daily comic strip to try kidlit. And like you said, Table Titans was originally a web comic, and it was more young adult fare. So it wasn't specifically written for kids. And we were trying to get that book out to a larger audience because I thought kids would really like it. And the people we talked to, the publishers and the editors we talked to said, we really wish this was a middle grade book. And we think this would really do well as a middle grade book. And so that's what kind of led me to consider, what if I took these characters and showed how they met in middle grade and kind of became this group of friends that played Dungeons and Dragons. And so that's what led me to make Table Titans Club. Yeah.
Well, I've gotta say that I absolutely love Table Titans Club, and I think it being a middle grade book, it just perfectly fits how middle grade and middle school goes, the adventures, the trials and tribulations. It's kind of both of Dungeons and Dragons, but also just middle school in general. It's really crazy being in it right now as well.
Yeah, middle school is a big scary adventure sometimes, and
Yeah,
And so having a big imagination and looking at it like a quest or a challenge could probably be helpful. I wish I had done that when I was in middle school, but yeah, yeah, I
yeah,
hope so. I'm glad you feel that way. Um, I really was hoping that the book would speak to people your age, so that's
yeah.
why I'm so excited that you like the book because you're really like the first person in the age group that it's for that's told me what they think of the book.
Well, I'm sure once it's out in March, everybody's gonna be raving about it. And
Oh,
for those who want to learn a little bit more about the plot, so I'm not gonna spoil anything, but I just want to let you know. So, Table Titans Club centers around your main character and her engaging and adventurous journey through middle school. But what really stands out and what stands true in the entire story is her new love for Dungeons and Dragons. She joins the Table Titans Club, hence the name. So, I know that you're a big fan of D&D as well. So, what draws you to the game and what drew your protagonist to it in the first place?
well, I was drawn to the game because it really role-playing games in general, but especially Dungeons and Dragons, is very much about storytelling. It really is collaborative storytelling. You're sitting around a table with your friends and you're building a world. You're building this history, this lore, and that has just always been so exciting to me. So I really cut my teeth on making comics and telling stories by playing Dungeons and Dragons. I didn't even know I was making uh, comics at the time, but um, I used to get in trouble when with my friends when we played D&D because I would spend so much time drawing everybody's characters
Mm,
and not enough time listening to the game. So that's really what drew me to the game. I think what draws my main character Val to the game are two things. The first is Val has a really vivid imagination. She's got a very overactive imagination. And so I think the game gives her a place to put that. It's
yeah,
like a good focus for that imagination that sometimes gets her in trouble or it gets her embarrassed. And I think the other thing that really draws her to the game is the friendships and the camaraderie that comes with playing a game like that. Um, it's uh it's a safe way to get to know people, to try out different things. When you're role playing, the things you say don't count because you're
yeah,
pretending. So it's a real safe place to practice social interaction. I think that appeals to her. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. And I've never really thought about D&D that way. There's a ton of kids. There's like D&D clubs at my school, and I think Table Titans Club is really gonna start getting me into it. Just understanding how, I guess, impactful it can be in a kid's life, both socially and also just in a fun way as well.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a group here in Seattle that I work with sometimes called Game to Grow, and they're a charity organization and they use role-playing games to help kids come out of their shell. They even use it to help autistic kids um, learn social cues and be better at social interactions. So
That's
yeah,
amazing.
it's really good at that.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about Table Titans Club, but now why don't you tell us about PvP? And it's the award-winning Eisner Award-winning webcomic
It
that you
did win an
founded.
Eisner.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so
Yep.
word on the comic street is that you revolutionized webcomics. Now, it's a pretty big word, everybody. He revolutionized it, and it's true. So, how did you come up with the idea for PvP, and what were the strips about when you were working on it?
So PvP is short for player versus player. You kids know that because you play all the
Yeah.
video games. But I called it that because I wanted to do a comic strip about pop culture and video games and the people that play them and really like that stuff. And so I based the comic around a group of people that had a magazine about video games and pop culture. Um, this was back before the internet kind of made magazines obsolete,
Mm,
but I also kind of liked when the internet made magazines obsolete because it meant my characters were working on kind of a failing format. And so when I always feel that when your characters are the underdogs or kind of failing at something, it makes them more interesting. So
Yeah.
the fact that their business was always kind of not doing very well, I thought made things more interesting. But yeah, just a group of friends that are a found family that are really kind of into nerdy stuff, and it was an opportunity for me to talk about all the things in movies and video games and comics and books and pop culture that I loved. And and everything I do is always very character based. I really do love developing characters and their personalities and their stories. So mix that stuff in with the pop culture, and that's PvP. So,
PvP has started out, as you said, pretty early on in the internet and all
mhm.
that. So, while it has stopped, how did it change with new digital and online innovations always coming in? Or did it kind of always stay the same?
No, it definitely changed. When you were doing a comic strip like that on a daily basis, things change over time,
Yeah.
just naturally as you grow as an artist and you grow as a writer. But as things changed, PvP kind of fell into different formats. We kind of animated it one time, um, and that was fun. But you know, I'm I mean, I'm old. I'm in my 50s. So I grew up reading comic strips in newspapers, and I've always loved that format. And so I've always wanted PvP to be a traditional comic strip. And so while we did other things, we did podcasts, we did animations, I
Yeah.
always wanted PvP to be a newspaper style comic strip. The business changed more than the strip itself over the years.
Mhm.
But yeah, PvP pretty much stayed the same. Um, I like to hope that the art improved and the writing improved over time, but the strip itself, I tried to keep it like you would see in the newspaper. Um, yeah, I'm a
I like that.
traditionalist when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah. So, you recently received your first piece of Table Titans Club fan art, and it
Yes.
must just be the best feeling having somebody truly adore the characters and like kind of it's also cool as readers seeing them grow up, and then when you have that artistic ability, you can really demonstrate your love for them through their art. And I am a horrible artist. I mean, there's no such thing as bad art, they say, but if there was, I think that'd be mine. Um, so yeah, I'm not the best artist, but somebody out there is. So is this what you hoped Table Titans Club would bring to the book world? Did you hope it would bring new readers to the table and new ideas and themes?
Wow. That's a great question. I really hope that it makes kids want to start their own role playing clubs at their schools or even at home. I would really like it to the book to inspire people to try role playing games if they haven't. They can be scary, I think,
Hmm,
sometimes because there's a lot of rules to learn. Especially when you pick up the book and you just see all the rules and they're kind of
yeah,
confusing at first, and then it's really tough to get. It's not something you play by yourself like a video game. You need to have a group of people that all understand the rules and all can get together at the same time, and so it can be daunting. But yeah, I hope it encourages people to at least look at role playing games, and then I also hope that the book kind of gets across to people that it's okay to be yourself. One of the things I love about Val that's different from how I was growing up is she doesn't really understand. Um, she doesn't really worry what other people think about her. She just kind of is who she is, and she doesn't understand why she would be anyone else. And that to me is something that I wish I'd been more like in junior high. Well, sorry, middle school. When I was young, it was called junior high, but
yeah,
uh, yeah, I just hope that the book shows young readers it's okay to be who you are and like the things that you like, even if some people consider them like nerdy things or kind of geeky. It's okay to own that love and express it and be that. Um,
absolutely.
yeah,
And
yeah.
if anybody calls you a nerd, everybody, just remember that nerds are the ones with hundreds of billions of dollars. So
Hmm.
just live by that, be you, and you're gonna have a really happy life. I mean, I'm 13 and I don't have that much life experience, but it's my 2 cents.
Yeah, but you're exactly the kind of kid that I hope people that read the book emulate. I mean, you're out there, you're doing your thing, you're passionate, you put it all. I mean, you're a classy dresser.
Thank you.
Look at that bow tie. Bow
Yeah.
ties are cool, man,
Yeah.
and you know that.
Mhm.
That's rad.
Live by them. Yeah.
How
And
many do you have?
don't
Be
let the
honest.
naysayers.
How many bow ties do you own?
I have a box full of them. I just
You
like
have a box?
I have a box of I mean, it's a shoe box that's become now my bow tie box, and you just gotta sort through them. And you don't like there's, like, a strategy, you can't have the same bow tie twice in a row, you can't have the same
Right,
button down twice in a row, so you gotta
right.
have a big selection. If it's winter, mainly long sleeves, like, summer, then short sleeves, and it's, like there's a lot to it. It's a lot behind the scenes, and it's
Now,
all clothes.
is that a legit bow tie? Do you know how to tie them?
I have no idea, but my mom ties them,
Oh,
so
okay.
when I'm 18, I
Awesome.
probably won't be wearing them when I'm, like, in college just 'cause, I've tried YouTube videos. I don't know.
I gotcha. You'll figure it out.
Yeah, well, I'll keep working on it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So, when I was looking through your website, I happened upon a diary comic that you created called More, which detailed your time caring for your ailing father. I think it's hardest to write about tough times, especially when you're in the moment. I mean, I've tried writing about middle school, and it just turns into a full-on, like, YA novel, the language that you hear, the experiences. Uh, it could be I also think writing, though, it is a heartfelt way to cope in difficult times, even if it is really tricky to do so. So will you share how Mort came about and kind of the gist of it, maybe, like, the illustrations and what it means to you?
Well, this feels so weird talking to you about this because you're only 13. You shouldn't have to worry about this kind of stuff yet.
Yeah.
But uh, Mort came about because my father had a couple strokes, and one of the things that happened from his strokes is he got something called vascular dementia. So it's kind of the beginnings of dementia, like Alzheimer's disease, but it's caused by um, the vascular damage to the blood vessels in his brain. So he came to live with us. We took care of him. We became his caregiver in 2018, and he lived with us for about a year and a half. And then we got to a point where they told us he needed 24-hour care, and so he lives in what's called a group home now, not too far from us, uh, which is kind of nice because it's not like a nursing home where it's like a hospital and kind of clinical. It's a house. He's
Yeah.
got other people, roommates there. He's got his own room, and it's really nice. But one of the things about when you have a parent that's going through dementia is you lose them slowly. So you know you lose pieces of them, and it's kind of difficult and sad. And I was talking to a therapist about it and how to deal with that sadness, and she suggested that I take time every day to just grieve that loss. And however I wanted to do that, whether it's cry, scream in a pillow, go for a walk, paint, and whatever I want to do, that's my time during the day to just like reflect and on that. And so because I'm a cartoonist, I started doodling, and I drew that little kind of slacker version of death. So the whole concept of death showing up with the sickle and the robe is that when someone dies, they show up and say, "Okay, I'm taking you to the you're dead now. I'm taking you to the other side." But with my dad, death is like taking his time. He's like this slacker kid that just doesn't want to do it right away, and he'll do it a little bit later. And he's just not getting the job done. And so um yeah, I just drew this picture, and then it led me to go, maybe I'll do comic strips about my experiences and what it was like, at the beginning when Dad had his problems, and then when he came to live with me, and so that was just my way of like working through it, using the language I'm the most comfortable with, which is comics. This is all very, very heavy stuff, E-Train. I feel so bad putting that on you and talk to you about it because
Well,
it's heavy. But look, here's the great news. I go visit my dad all the time. He's still my dad. He remembers me, he remembers our past. We were just talking about I told him that I met someone who sells books in Virginia, and we were talking about when we lived in Virginia. So I'm very, very lucky. And I'm also lucky that I have that outlet in cartooning to work through those problems. And I'm glad that I talked to someone that was recommended to me. And the great thing about Mort is when I put it up on my website, I started hearing from people who read it that were going through similar things, and they said that the comic really helped them too, which I didn't ever expect. So, yeah,
that's
that's
awesome.
Mort.
And
Did
I
that
just,
answer your question?
yeah, it did.
Okay.
Life can be kind of heavy, but I like that you, through your comic strips, you were able to kind of channel that grief, but also add your own kind of spin to it. Like slacker version of death, it's perfect. It's comedy gold, per usual, with you.
Thank you. Yeah, well, one of the things that my dad and I do when we deal with all this stuff is we do laugh about it a lot. And I have a younger brother who's 3 years younger than me, and he's lives very close. He's very involved too. And all three of us, you know, we always say if you don't laugh about it, you'll cry. So there's a lot of humor in our lives around, my dad's challenges. One of the things that happened when he had his first stroke was he lost the ability to use his left hand very well. So he
Mm,
could open it all the way and he could close it all the way. But having it in the middle, that was tough for him. And he reached one time for I think it was a Chick-fil-A drink, that styrofoam cup.
yeah,
And he goes, I don't want to reach for it with my left hand. And we said, Papa, you got to practice. He's like, well, I'm going to drop it. And I said, just you got to practice holding it in the middle. So he grabbed it, he trained, and he just crushed it. And Coke went everywhere. And we couldn't stop laughing. And he was so mad that we made him do it. But again, if you're not laughing about it, you're crying about it. So
yeah,
that was easy to put in the strip because we in real life laugh about it. So yeah.
yeah. So, kind of shifting back towards the topic of Table Titans Club, Val is such an awesome character, I've got to say.
Thank
She's
you.
strong, she's resilient, and kind as well. So, despite all of these amazing attributes, she can feel kind of alone at school, like she doesn't really fit in. Until she meets the one of a kind, the best club ever, the Table Titans Club. And some of the members, not all of them, but most of them are super accepting. And their motto is super cool. Titans never say die. So can you
Yeah.
tell us what this means and what the line means to you?
Well, the line is lifted from a movie that I grew up with. So one of the things that I always put in my books in my comic are references to my favorite movies from the 1980s. So when I grew up, were you even born in the 1900s? You were born in the 2000s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was born in the new millennium. I wasn't born in the last millennium.
Okay. Okay.
Uh,
Well,
yeah, yeah,
when I grew up, it was the 1980s, and we had all the movies of George Lucas and Steven Spielberg and John Hughes, and one of the movies was called Goonies. And Goonies was about, have you ever seen Goonies?
yeah,
Yeah. So it's about a group of kids that try to save their town, right? They try to find a pirate treasure so they can save their town and all live together and stay together. And so since my story was about saving the Table Titans Club, I thought I would put a little Goonies reference in there, and
mm,
their motto was Goonies never say die. Um and so yeah, I had to make their motto Table Titans never say die. I like to think that Andrew um has seen the Goonies and made that his motto. But yeah, it just means that um the motto for them means that they just don't ever give up on each other.
Yeah.
And that, whether that's in the game when they're playing their D&D game, or they just in real life. That if you're a Table Titan, if you join their club, that means and you're in their friend group, we don't give up on each other. And so that's really what it means. And I think that when Val first hears the motto, she's so excited and drawn to it. One, because it's cool that the club has a cool motto. That's just cool.
Yeah.
And two, I think she is drawn to the fact that these friends, they don't ever give up on each other. One of the things I love about Alan and Andrew and Darius is that Alan's kind of a jerk sometimes,
Yeah.
and that's not going to stop them from being friends. Um, they would rather keep Alan as a friend and work on him and try to teach him how not to be so cynical all the time. But yeah, that's what it means. You just don't give up on your friends.
That's a motto you gotta live by, everybody.
That's right.
Because you gotta never give up on your friends. And I think a lot of kids sometimes do. Maybe if they don't have similar interests, if they might be turning into not as good of a person, they kind of just give up on them. They don't really see it through. They don't try to find common ground, be there for them, and it's not cool. If you're friends, you gotta say it to yourself, friend, like whatever your friend group is, maybe it's Titans, maybe it's anything, but you gotta never say die.
Yeah. Well, and it's tougher for you kids than it ever was for us.
Yeah,
And I think that um you guys have to deal with so much more stuff than we ever did. And I think that the best way to have a friend is to be a friend, and you just got to take the time to stop and think, what are they going through? How can I help them?
yeah,
And yeah, I think that's important. I think that is important. And I think that if you help your friends through stuff, it helps you too. It makes you feel better. So yeah, I agree.
yeah. And you actually have another book series as we talked about it a little bit, called
Hmm.
Table Titans,
Yeah.
and you mentioned that so I was gonna ask you, like, if there's any correlation between that and Table Titans Club. You kinda already answered that. I still just
Yeah.
want to bring it up. So,
Yeah,
Table
Table
Titans.
Titans is
Yeah,
basically these characters in Table Titans Club after they've grown up and they've been friends for a long time.
yeah,
And that's not how it started. It started backwards. I did that first, and now I'm going back and telling about how they met as kids. But what would be really interesting is if the book does well, um, maybe eventually we get to a point where we age with them. And as you get older, like readers like you now that are 13, 14, as you get older and move up into YA books, maybe then we can move into them as adults and tell those stories too. But it's out there, it's online. And so yeah, it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how those connect eventually. But yeah, that's why. And that's why we called this series Table Titans Club, so that we there was a
yeah,
definite difference between the two. Now, another big difference is Table Titans Club is being for real published by a for real publisher and is going to
yeah,
be in stores, and Table Titans I self-published. So the only people that really know about it were people that were fans of PvP or might have seen me at a convention, or picked it up at a comic book shop that we managed to get it into. But the reach that Table Titans Club will have because of the awesome people at Holiday House is going to be much wider than we ever got with the original Table Titans as a self-publisher, because there's just only so much you can do when you're doing it all yourself.
So, I'm pretty sad this is the last question of the interview, but this is a pretty big one. This is one that I ask every single person that I interview.
Okay.
So, if you could be or meet any literary character, and you could be or meet your favorite author or your favorite character in a story, who would it be and why?
Oh, that is so tough. Can I count? Can I?
Yeah, you can like mull over it a little bit. If that's I think that's the word. I don't
Do
know.
comics count?
Yeah, comics count. I mean, comics are real, are books. They're real books, everybody.
Okay, okay, okay. So this is a tough one.
Yeah.
Um, I would really like to meet. mm, I don't know. I might have to go with Superman.
I mean, it's cliche, but like, you know,
Well, no, I love Superman so much. I
yeah, he's
love
the best.
I love what he represents, and I'm excited about um James Gunn's doing new movies that are
Yeah.
more about who Superman is and 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 what he represents. The thing I love about Superman is he's not Superman because of his powers. He's Superman because he was raised by a farmer in Kansas. You know, the
Yeah.
values that he was taught. I don't know. I just something about that I really love. That is a cliche answer. Um,
It's fun. It's Superman, you can never go wrong with him.
right. I'd love to write him one day. One of I'll tell you what, one author I'd really love to sit and talk with is uh Michael Connelly. So there's a book series that's been turned into an Amazon show now called Bosch, and it's a third detective novels. But Michael Connelly, he writes all these books. He writes the Lincoln Lawyer books, the Bosch books, and a bunch of other books. But the really cool thing about Michael Connelly, why I'd love to talk to him, is he started off as a reporter
Oh,
and he
cool.
started off writing in LA about the crime beat on the crime beat. So he followed all that stuff before he started writing. I just it would be fascinating to hear about his times in the newspapers and being on that crime beat. But yeah, I'd love to pick Michael Connelly's brain and talk to him about all that stuff.
That'd be
Yeah,
cool.
those are kind of boring answers, but
I
that's what I
mean,
got.
yeah. So I lied when I said that was the last question. I just gotta add this extra one in here. So
Okay.
my dad's from Seattle, and he constantly is preaching that everybody's wrong when they say it always rains there. I need your opinion on this. Is it always raining in Seattle, or is
No,
that
it's not.
just
It's not always raining in Seattle. Well,
stereotype?
it's not always raining in the way people think, okay? So you're in California, right?
Yeah,
Okay. So it hardly ever rains there, right? I mean, lately it has been, but
yeah. But I mean, for like a few years, there was a
yeah,
huge drought here.
right. So the thing about Seattle is there's a rainy season and there's a non-rainy season. So from spring all the way to like fall again, it's gorgeous. It's bright.
Yeah,
It's beautiful, and everyone's outside. And you go to the park a lot. You go for walks a lot, and then in the winter it's overcast, and it's
yeah.
always kind of drizzling on and off but not raining. Like when I used to live in Texas, I lived in Dallas, Texas. And when it rained in Texas, it rained. It poured. And there's thunder and lightning, and that's not the way it is here. The reason why it's considered a rainy season is because all that ocean air comes off the ocean and can't get over the mountains to the east. So
Oh,
everything just kind of hangs here over the Seattle area. And yeah, your dad's right. It doesn't just rain all the time. The the hard part in the winter season is that it's overcast and then the days are shorter. So it's darker longer in the morning and it gets
yeah.
darker at like 4:30. So between that and it being overcast, it feels like you never see the sun. But yeah, no, it doesn't constantly rain here. Not the way it rains other places.
So there you have it, folks.
There you
We're
go.
we're talking about books and we're solving mysteries.
We're solving the mystery of Seattle. Why
Yeah.
is it always wet here in the winter?
Well, it's not.
It's
So
not all the time.
everybody, now you have an excuse to visit Seattle. It's
Yes.
a place. Pike Place Market. You got it. I'm a huge Seahawks fan. Best fan base out there. Like it's amazing.
Yeah. Wow. Look at you.
Yeah, I'm
Seahawks fan.
cultured. Yeah, I'm not a
You are very cultured.
not a Niners fan. Yeah, I was
Oh,
probably the only kid in the Sacramento area who was not rooting for the Niners in the Super Bowl, and they're all un it's also sad, there are, like, a couple Seahawks fans in Sacramento, but they're not my dad, my dad is a devoted Seahawks fan, but
okay. Good.
there were some kids who were rooting for the Niners just because they didn't like the Chiefs. I mean, That's like against the law.
Yeah, no.
It
Come
should
on.
be punished like a cruel punishment. Anyway, back to books. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for talking with me, Scott. This has been such a fun interview, and everybody, you gotta pre-order, or if you're seeing this after early March, then you have to order Scott Kurtz's newest book, Table Titans Club, out, I believe, and I'm probably completely wrong on this, March 3rd.
5th.
5th. See, I told you.
Oh, you got it
Not good
right.
at researching,
March
guys.
5th.
March 5th.
You said it right the first time.
Yeah. So, everybody, I've been chatting with one and only author and webcomic icon. Yeah, he's an icon, everybody. Scott Kurtz. He's an award-winning cartoonist, illustrator, D&D adventurer. That's the proper term. I actually looked it up.
Okay.
And you can find out more about his adventures at www.toonhoundstudios.com and on his Twitter, which is PvP Online, at
Correct.
PvP Online. And yeah, he's pretty much everywhere. So hopefully we'll meet again sometime, Scott. Maybe I'll come up to
Yeah.
the area. And
Let me know if you're in Seattle.
yeah. And stay safe, keep reading, and I'll see you in the next one, everybody. Bye.